Hi everyone, it's Rachel back with the Shades of Orange. Today I want to talk about some thriller and horror books, including a new release. And I don't have a lot of preamble, so you know what? Let's just get started. First, let's talk about the 2020 new release. And I read Little Secrets by Jennifer Hillier, which I received a copy of from St. Martin's Press. And this is a thriller that follows a woman who goes out to the marketplace with her young son. She loses track of him and quickly finds out that he has been kidnapped. She has video footage of him walking off with a man dressed as Santa Claus. And then the story fast forwards a year and he is still missing. There are no active leads. The police have basically put this on the back burner, and so the main character has hired a private investigator to continue the investigation. She is in a tough spot herself, definitely dealing with a lot of depression and even suicidal thoughts based off the fact that she has lost her son. However, she has hope when the private investigator contacts her, but it turns out it's not about her son. Instead, the PI is letting her know that she has discovered that her husband is having an affair, and she is given that information about that woman. Now, from there, the story kind of spirals because she becomes obsessed with this other woman and decides to take her down and actually wants to end her life. And from that synopsis, I'll let you know that this story does go to some really crazy places. Typically, I do prefer more down-to-earth thrillers. I like ones that don't require a lot of that suspension of disbelief. But the reason that I accepted this one for review is the fact that the name Jennifer Hillier always makes me want to pick up a book. I'm a huge fan of her as an author. I've read just about all of her backlist at this point and really enjoy her. And the elements I enjoyed about her, I did still see here. I'll say that she's an incredible storyteller. From the first chapter, I was pulled into the story. She just knows how to write in a way that makes it interesting. And her characters were great. They're always very flawed. They're not perfect. You definitely get frustrated with them at times, but in a way that is realistic because they don't make perfect choices. They make mistakes. They do stupid things. And that definitely is the case here. Jennifer Hillier is an author who is a person of color. And so she does include characters of different ethnic background in all of her stories. And that was present here, although it wasn't so much as in her other books, but you do get to see some different racial backgrounds. And for the most part, I enjoyed this one, but I didn't love it as much as her backlist. And that's kind of the shame, that because I went into this book loving her so much as an author, knowing the ability she has to write the most amazing stories, I found this one to just be okay. So for me, what I struggled with is the fact that the plot is so over the top, and I found myself just struggling to believe what was happening, that a character who is struggling with depression and suicide over her son would leap to the conclusion of deciding to kill the mistress of her husband. And because of that, it was a little bit of a struggle at times to get through the story. There were some twists and turns, some of them which I saw coming and some of them which I did not. All of her stories are always told in multiple perspectives, so we as the reader do get a little bit more insight into what's happening than the characters. And for me, that does take away a little bit of the suspense because we kind of get the curtain pulled back a little bit earlier than you normally would in a thriller. But still, there was definitely some surprises, and I like this one. It's just not my favorite. So for anyone who is already a fan of her work, I would still recommend picking this up. If you want to try the best of Jennifer Hillier, I'd probably say go back to some of her backlists like Creep or The Butcher. But this one is fun, and I would still recommend it if you're a big fan of thrillers. Next, I read a thriller called Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. And this I did as a buddy read with Geraldine Reads, and I'm going to link her channel down below. She reads a little bit of everything, some literary fiction, some nonfiction, a little bit of horror, thrillers, all of that. And what I love so much about her channel, well, there's a lot of reasons, but she does incredible vlogs, and I don't like reading vlogs typically, but I like hers. She focuses a lot on her food and it's always really delicious looking, so I definitely recommend checking her out. There's kind of something for everyone on her channel because of the variety of what she reads, and she was just a lot of fun to buddy read with. All that being said, back to the book, Turn of the Key, if you're not familiar, is a very loose retelling of Turn of the Screw. I have read the classic, and I'll let you know that you don't need to have read that one in order to enjoy this one. It's very loose, and it's more of just a nod or a wink in the title. I don't think they have much more in common than that. This story is set in the present day and follows a young woman who gets the opportunity to apply for and get a job as a nanny in this very isolated area. The people that she's working with are both architects, and they've designed a home that is essentially a smart home. So within the home, there is a lot of technology incorporated in there. So the fridge is able to order groceries and keep a tally of that, and everything is just connected with tablets and phones. And the idea with this is that things start to go kind of funny in the house, and you don't totally know if it's just the technology acting up or if something more sinister is going on. And for me, I'm someone who really likes smart technology, so I didn't find those aspects to be creepy. Instead, I just found them really cool. And I'll say that this book is not scary at all. I've heard other people describe it as creepy, and I do think if you go in with those expectations, you will be disappointed. I know from Geraldine, she wished that it had been a lot scarier than it was. I kind of had been pre-warned that it wasn't quite what people were saying, so I went in with more average expectations, which kind of helped with my reading experience. I will say that it is the most fast-paced, addicting read. If I wasn't doing it as a buddy read, I probably would have flown through it in 1 or 2 days. And it's just really easy to get through the chapters. And there was some twists and turns that I didn't see coming. The first twist really worked for me. I just thought it was really good because there was a lot of good buildup that made the twist make a lot of sense. There was some other twists that I wasn't as excited for. The final twist I just found very weak. I can see people having mixed feelings about the ending of this book. And overall, I think if you're just looking for a really fun story, this is a good one to pick up. If you're someone like me that leans towards creepier thrillers, this one wasn't creepy at all. So kind of recommend it if you're the right audience, all of that good stuff. But I'm glad I read it, but I'm not overly excited to read more of Ruth Ware, if I'm honest. And finally, I want to talk about a horror book that I actually read back in January, but that is House of Leaves. And the reason I want to do that is you probably saw that I did a reading vlog on that came out, I think, at the end of January or February. But I wanted to talk about this one again because of the fact that I really wanted to provide you with a more concise review. As I mentioned, I don't actually watch a lot of people's reading vlogs, so I understand if you didn't choose to watch mine. And instead, if you just want to know my thoughts on this book, I thought I would share them here. I am going to put down this book. I normally hold them up in my video clips, but this book is really heavy. And I just wanted to come back and just kind of give you a quick snapshot of what I thought about this book for anyone who is thinking about picking it up themselves. So House of Leaves is a story that is a story within a story. So you have a man who discovers the records of another man named Zampino, and the man Zampino is doing a study of a documentary film called the Navidson Records, which is possibly fictionalized and is about a family that move into a house where they start to discover that the inside of the house is possibly bigger than the outside. And that is the basic premise for the story. If you want a more detailed synopsis, there are other reviews out there, but I more want to leave you with my impressions. And I'll let you know that this is a very literary piece of horror. It is not the quote-unquote fun horror that you often hear me talk about on my channel. And so with that, you have to go in with the right expectations. It's a very long book and it's a very dense book. In a lot of ways, it reads like a textbook. It is very fact-based and just has an overload of information. You've probably heard people talk about the formatting, and part of that is the fact that there are tons of footnotes in this book. Some of them you can tell you're supposed to skip over because they are references to things that just simply don't exist. But some of the footnotes are commenting on what is happening in the main text, and so you should read those. And it definitely takes a while to get through this book. And it's just a very overwhelming experience, but I want to mention that because it's done on purpose. Within the text, you basically find out that the author is very much aware that his book is exhausting, and it's just so much information, it's so much to read, and it almost is done on purpose because this book does create some mental fatigue. And that really leads into the psychological aspect of this book. A lot of people describe this as one of the scariest books they've ever read. And I'll say that it probably is either the scariest book you've ever read or the most boring book you've ever read. So it really depends on the mindset when you go into it, what type of books you connect with. While this is a book about a haunted house in a way, or a weird house, something strange going on, it's much more psychological than something like a traditional ghost story. So if you're going in expecting a ghost jumping out of the closet, you're not going to get that. Instead, this is a book that is intended to play with your mind. So the more immersed you are in the story, the more you will get out of it. I talked about this in my reading vlog. I really tried to go in with the right expectations, but despite all that, despite all the mental preparations I did, I still lost my focus on this book and just struggled to get through. I was just pushing myself to the end for the sake of the vlog, for the sake of giving you this review, but I did not like this book. I did not enjoy it. I can appreciate why other people would. Something to know is the fact that there is a lot of information around this book. So there are references to things that you can look up online, and there is just a lot that you can get out of this book if you want to dig further, and there's definitely some good resources to do that. So if that sounds intriguing to you, I absolutely say go for this book. You really have to try it for yourself. You probably can't decide if you're going to enjoy it simply from my review, but I want to set up those expectations because I know this is kind of the Mount Everest for a lot of horror readers, a book that they've always wanted to read but are a little bit scared to do so, and you just have to try it and see how it goes. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them and to help you figure out whether or not this book is for you. But it was a chunky one, it was an exhausting one, kind of on purpose, and for me it didn't work, but again, I appreciate that for other people this is one of their all-time favorite books, and I definitely don't want to say that it's a bad book. It's just really was not for me. So that's it for this wrap up. I would love to hear your opinions on all three of the books I talked about here. Because I had a lot of thoughts, I tried to keep this video a little more self-contained. Normally I try to talk about at least like 4 or 5 books, but I just had a lot to say, so you had to listen to it. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't yet subscribed, please consider doing so. I read a lot of horror and science fiction as well as fantasy and thrillers. And otherwise, please leave me a comment and I will talk to you again soon. Okay, bye-bye.